Changing a country isn't easy, but change is inevitable. And the choices we make today will shape our country for generations to come. That's why we've published our first book from Australia Institute Press. What's the Big Idea offers 32 ideas for a better Australia, from leading thinkers such as Bob Brown, Sally McManus, Dr. Emma Shortis, and Professor Brian Schmidt. The essays are a roadmap and a reminder that the solutions exist. Australia just needs the courage to implement them. Visit australiainstitute.org.au or follow the link in the show notes to order your copy of What's the Big Idea today.
Hello and welcome to Dollars and Cents, the Australian Institute podcast where we're talking about just what the hell is going on in the economy. I'm Elinor Johnston-Leek, the senior content producer here at the Australian Institute, and as always, I'm talking to our chief economist, Greg Jericho. Good morning, Greg.
Morning, Eleanor.
Or
we
hello.
Normally say morning.
No,
we
we
normally
don't,
say hello because not everyone is listening to this in the morning.
Whatever time of day, greetings to you and to Greg. So, Greg, we talk a lot about on the podcast, we joke a lot about how I'm never going to be available to afford a house. You've told me this in so many new and depressing ways, but this week you found another, even newer and even more depressing way to tell me that I will never be able to afford a house.
Yeah, that was nice of me. It all sprung from one wonderful colleague of ours, Anna, who never likes her name being mentioned in bright light. So, Anna, thank you. Well done. She'd come to me a while ago and sort of said, you know, the whole thing about saving for a deposit isn't the problem that as you're saving for deposit, the deposit keeps getting bigger.
That's certainly how it feels to me. Yeah.
And doesn't that mean it's harder now than it was in the past? And I sort of put my economics brain to it and did too much thinking and thought, I don't know how I can sort of make this clear. And then I was sort of again, as often as you were quite rightly saying, I was writing about house prices again because we had new house price figures come out this week. And I was thinking, God, how do I write about this thing that is always terrible in a new way? And I kind of remembered Anna's sort of line. I thought, well, hang on, we know what average earnings are. So I thought, well, okay, how much should you be saving from average earnings? So I sort of thought, oh, well, normally they say save 20% of your income. That's what all the, all the gurus on making your own budgets and everything, barefoot investors and all that type of thing say 20%. But often that's 20% for everything. You know, it's for holidays, for saving it for a car, saving it for things. So I thought, okay, well, and also I thought, geez, 20%, that's hard.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, let's make it 15%. So I thought, okay, I can do 50. I know what average earnings are. We know how much you can save, and we know what the median price of a house is in every capital city. And so you know what the deposit is if you're aiming for basically a 20% deposit. So I thought, okay, well, let's see how long that would take you. And it took a bit of mucking about with some maths, and I found that actually it's kind of impossible in most places. And then I was thinking, okay, well, when do you start from? And I thought, Joe Hockey, 10 years ago, so in 2015, told Australians that
the starting point for a first home buyer is to get a good job that pays good money. And if you've got a good job and pays good money and you have security in relation to that job, then you can go to the bank and you can borrow money. If housing were unaffordable in Sydney, no one would be buying it.
Thank you, Joe Hockey, for that
and
advice.
So I thought, also, thank you, Joe. That'll be my starting date. So I'm like, okay, you're in the middle of 2015. You've started saving you've been saving for 6 months. How are you going 10 years later?
Yeah. How are you going 10 years later?
We're not going. Look, the figures, as you can expect, are different and much worse and better in certain places. But let's start with Sydney, which is clearly the worst and the biggest market. Let's say you were back exactly 10 years ago, sort of the end of 2024, thinking, right, I reckon I should start saving for a house.
Yeah.
Now, around then, the average deposit you would have needed for a median priced house. So that's basically a house right in the middle of the housing market. So a
Nothing
good guide.
crazy.
Nothing crazy, just a very median-sized house. You were going to need to save up for that deposit $154,000.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because it was the average price, or the median price, sorry, was about $770,000. So 20% of that, we're getting around $154,000. So you think, okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, let's not just do average earnings. Let's really take Joe Hockey at his word and go, good job, pays good money. We know men, as we've talked about, earn more than women.
Yeah.
Full-timers earn more than average, workers. So, right, what if you were on male average full-time earnings in New South Wales, which back then was around $88,000?
Yeah. That sounds like a pretty
Yep.
good income.
Now to be around 113,000, 114,000.
So what kind of jobs would people be working if they were earning?
Well, basically a better paying job than pretty much 80% of all jobs.
Yeah.
So more than teachers,
Yeah.
more than the average salary of a teacher, of a nurse, of a motor mechanic, of a police officer, of, pretty much anything that you think is a good job that pays good money.
So if that's not a good job, Joe Hockey.
So I'm really setting the bar kind of as low as I can be here going, and also I'm saying you've already got that full-time average earning paid job when you say 30, or 28 or something, you're starting paying. So you need 154,000. That's your target at that time. And you're saving 15% of your after-tax income. So I had to have lots of fun playing around with the tax scales. And believe me, there have been quite a few changes in tax rates. So it basically works out you're saving in the order of $1,000 a month, which is pretty good. 10 to 12,000 a year.
And this is just going to the house, nothing else.
This is just you're just saving for the house. You're not allowed to touch that money, which again, kind of incredible. And also you're earning interest on that. So I decided, right, I'm going to give you a bump in interest every 6 months. You get an interest earnings. So I thought, right, 154,000, that's our target. You start in middle of 2015, end of 2024, you've been saving for 10 years.
Yeah. So surely
you have
Greg.
saved up $126,000. So, okay, you're not at your 154,000, but you're getting damn close.
Pretty close, yeah.
Problem is, 154,000 will no longer get you a deposit on a medium-priced house.
No. How much is the
what
deposit?
You now need in Sydney for a medium-priced house deposit is $281,500. So what that means is you still need an extra $155,000. So 10 years ago when you started, you needed $154,000. Now, after 10 years of good saving, you still need another $155,000.
Yeah.
You need another $1,000 more than you needed when you started. This is what, and when I sort of looked at this, it was one of those, I'm going to redo those figures because
that's
this
surely
can't
not
be right.
Yeah.
And I got people to check them. I'm like, is this right? Am I doing it wrong? And all the time I'm also thinking, I'm setting the bar as low as you can. This is a good job. It's paid good money. You've been dedicated to your savings for 10 years, a decade of saving $1,000 or so every month on the month, just being good at it. And you're no closer. You're literally no closer. In fact, you're $1,000 further away from your goal than you were when you started. I mean, that really highlights how people in Sydney, more than anywhere else, are truly stuffed.
Yeah. Very Sisyphus pushing the boulder up the hill.
Yeah. I mean, the situation is not as bad in other states.
Yeah. Is there anywhere I could live or someone earning a good job could have lived that they'd be able to afford a house?
The only place in Australia, and this I'm talking capital cities, not rural areas. Rural areas is a bit trickier. House prices are a bit lower, but you're also earning less there. So it kind of washes out. Unfortunately, we don't really have good figures on average earnings in rural areas.
Yep.
So like I can't find out what's the average earning in Wagga Wagga or something like that, or even sort of non-capital city states is a bit tougher. So we're just mainly talking capital cities here, and to be honest, that's where most people are. So
Yeah.
it's pretty true. Is the only place you could have done it in the last 10 years is Darwin.
Yeah.
Now, the only reason you could do it in Darwin is not because Darwin has got a bountiful amount of housing or anything like that. It's just that actually the average earnings in Darwin is pretty high. There is quite a lot of inequality in the Northern Territory where you've got massive amounts of poverty, but also some really good paying jobs, a lot of defence jobs, a lot
Yep.
of public service
Yep.
jobs, some mining jobs. And also what's happened over the last 10 years, happened in Western Australia as well, that mining investment boom ended. A lot of people left, so there kind of was a bit of a housing bubble.
Yeah. So you're telling me if
bursting.
I'd stayed in Darwin after finishing school,
So long as you had,
so long as I was
you had
having a good job,
that was paid the average full-time
male
male salary for 10 years,
If
and
only.
you save 15%, you would have got there. And the really bad thing is that for many places, like for example Brisbane and Adelaide, they started off, it wasn't so expensive. They were not thinking, it's going to take us 15 years worth of savings to get there, which is kind of what was the case in Sydney. That 154,000, that was kind of equivalent to 15 years worth of savings.
Yeah.
The good news is you no longer have 15 years worth of savings. After 10 years, you've only got 11 years more to go. You've wiped about 3.5 years off your deposit in the past 10 years in Sydney. In Brisbane and Adelaide, in both places 10 years ago, you were looking at having to save for about 9.5 years to pay off that deposit. And for 4 or 5 years, you're kind of tracking kind of nicely. You're getting there. And then in both places, in 2020, had really strong house prices during the pandemic with the low interest rates and with the home builder program and all that stimulus, which sent house price in Brisbane and Adelaide really going up. So basically 4.5 years ago in Adelaide and Brisbane, you had about 4.5 years to go on your savings. And now you have about 4.5 years to go on your savings. So basically what has happened in Brisbane and Adelaide for 4.5 years, every 6 months, you are saving enough to keep you at the same point.
Yep.
You've been treading water for 4.5 years, and at this point, you're hoping against hope that something is going to stop that. And it's just, it must be incredibly disheartening.
Yeah, it is actually.
But I'm saying disheartening, not just because we know it's so bad, but when you look at these figures, even if I'm in the best situation and I'm the most
if I'd done what Joe Hockey had told me.
If I'd done everything that I'm supposed to do, I'm still not going to get there. And here's the real kick in the guts. It wasn't always this way.
Yeah.
If you had started saving back in 1987 on that male full-time average earnings, trying to get to the median price Sydney house, you would have got there in 9 years.
Yeah.
If you'd started in 1987, you get there in 9 years. If you'd started in 2015, here 10 years later, you still got 11.5 years to go.
Yeah.
All things going perfect. So when you hear that, that is why when you read all these stories about, millennials, they're not even trying to save anymore. It's like, why would you?
Yeah.
Why would you bother doing it unless hopefully you've fallen in love with someone else who's got a good job that pays good money. And you've both had that good job that pays good money for a long time. So you're already built up some savings and you're both able to save. You don't have any kids, so you're not having to pay daycare because probably daycare and rent is going to wipe out an entirety of one of your salaries. So you're back down to oh, I've only got one person with a good job who pays good money. You're probably going to need at least one of you to have a parent who also had a good job that paid good money, so that they have got some money to help you.
Yeah.
Chip, it's
And you don't have any other
if
large
you are
expenses.
not in that situation, so if you're most people, you kind of look at this going, why would I bother, saving $126,000 over 10 years, a decade, and I'm still $155,000 away from owning a median house. Now, at this point, everyone else, the critics are coming, oh, but yeah, well, maybe you need to aim for a smaller house. And it's like, okay, but I've been going for 10 years. How old am I now?
Yeah.
I'm in my 30s at least. I've probably, if I'm lucky enough, have got a partner. We've probably got a kid.
Yeah.
Because people are having kids in their 30s because time runs out at a certain point. So can I just afford a one-bedroom apartment? No, not really. I might be able to afford it, but it's not livable. So I need a two-bedroom something. Or I can't live out in, the foothills of the Blue Mountains or something. I need to be somewhere close to where I work.
But if someone on an average salary who's making more than most people can't afford sort of a median-sized house, they're buying up all the, cheaper properties. Everyone who makes less than them is just...
Yes, and remember that average full-time male salary is more than 80% of people earn. So if you are on average full-time male earnings, you're in the top 20%, which is why during the stage 3 debate, you heard Scott Morrison and everything talking about, oh, this is going to be great for everyone. People on male average full-time earnings are going to be a lot better off. This is, helping everyone. And everyone's going, oh, male full-time earnings, that sounds good. Yeah, that's in the top 20%.
Yeah.
So we're talking here, it's impossible for people in the top 20%. Let's say you're in the median and you have a partner who's also on median earnings. You put that together, you may be getting close to it. You're still, it's just, the reason why I liked doing this column is too often we talk about house prices often in kind of abstract terms where you go, oh, the cost of a house now is worth 15 years of average salary. And it's like, hey, but you don't buy a total house. You don't pay the $1 million. You don't hand over a check for $1 million. All you're really caring about is getting that deposit. And so this, I think, really gets across that getting that deposit is impossible. And so it's a case of, all right, clearly something is utterly broken.
And I don't think it's that everyone's buying avocado toast.
No. And that was the other thing, showing that this used to be done, because you'll get people come and go, oh, yeah, but back in the day, you only needed one income. Now most people, more women work, so you've got to do dual incomes. I'm going, yeah, okay. But the reality is back in the day, you didn't need that. And I'm still saying, even if we can tweak it all we like to come up with a thing. Oh, if you were earning this and this and you save 20% instead of 50%, you'll be able to afford it. I'm like, okay, but are we being realistic here? I'm trying to sort of make it as easy as possible for a person to save for a house. Is it able to be done? Not really. Where the problem is we still have all our policy settings designed so that when that person who has looked at this and gone, oh, I can't do this, it's impossible, when that person retires, we still have a system devised where you need a home when you retire, otherwise you're stuffed.
Yeah.
And we have not faced up to that. We still, all the stuff about we got to reform capital gains tax. We got to do something about negative gearing. We need more public housing. We got to stop doing what we've done for the past 25 years because it ain't worked, or it has worked if your aim was to get high house prices and make investors rich, which, to be honest, probably was the aim. But not only do we have to stop doing that, we got to start thinking about people who are actually going, no, I can't do it. It's not realistic for me to do it. I'm going to be renting. Okay. What can we do to make sure that their lives are better so they're not on like monthly rental agreements, 6 monthly at best, maybe a year is beautiful? And also, what are we going to do to ensure that when these people who have had good jobs that pay good money, when they retire, we're not sentencing them to poverty because they're still having to pay rent in the way that people who were able to get into the housing market back in the day, or people like me, because I was born, 15, 20 years earlier than millennials were, who was going, oh, our house is paid off. What are you worrying about? I can just live on my super. Well, great. But we are going to have a wave of people coming who will not have paid off their house. At best, they will still be paying off their house, because if you're a 35, 40-year-old and you're going to look for a loan that's a 30-year loan, you're going to be paying it off when you're 70, 75.
Yeah.
That's not how the system is meant to be worked. So we need to start caring about this. And where it gets really annoying, we're what, 2 months from the election?
Well, yeah.
Is anyone talking about housing affordability in any real way? Is anyone talking about problems for renters? Is anyone talking about the fact that no one can afford a damn deposit?
Have there been any sort of policies or anything announced?
Nothing. All we've still got is the government's HAF, the Housing Australia Future Fund, which, is tinkering. It'll deliver a few more houses, but at the margin, it's not really going to shift us in any way back to having public housing construction making up 10 to 15% like it used to in the 60s and 70s. Back when it was more common for people to have live in a public home. Now, if you're in public housing, people think, cripes, how bad is your life?
Well, my friend who lives in public housing, it's not great.
Yeah, because not only are you sort of struggling enough that you're living in public housing, you're struggling so bad that you are able to get to the front of the queue to get into public housing.
Yeah.
How stuffed is that? And that's a terrible state of affairs to be in. Not for your friend or anything like that, but that's how we look at public housing.
Yeah.
Whereas, as Richard Dennis has often said, let's tweak it. Do we think that same way about Defence Force housing?
Yeah, so we're talking about tens of billions of dollars per year. The government could, I don't know, build houses. Hang on, what? Well, if we have a shortage of houses and we want a bigger supply of houses, and just hang on for a second, this might get technical. Yeah. But we could build houses. But I tell you what, there's something very strange going on here, because I think the government already knows how to do that. Because right now we have something called the Defence Housing Authority. Can you guess what it does, Matt? Defence Housing Authority, does it provide housing? Yeah. To defence people? And you know how it does it? By building houses, buying land, building houses, renting them to people who work in the Defence Force. This is a brilliant idea. Well, does the government know the Defence Force is doing this? Imagine if we took the Defence Housing Authority and took the word, let's amend the bill. Let's be really technical here. Let's introduce an amendment that removes the word defence from the Defence Housing Authority and just turn it into the Housing Authority. And then it could just make houses for lots of different people. Maybe nurses, maybe teachers, maybe people. Radical.
No, we think, oh, you're in defence. Oh, you
Yeah,
no
of
one
course you
worries
get a
if you're in
house.
defence.
Yeah.
We know you're going to get a house. So why aren't we thinking that same way for nurses, for teachers, for, why isn't there nursing housing Australia like there's Defence Force housing? Why isn't there teacher housing Australia? Why isn't there just housing Australia? So that the government builds houses, rents them out to people at good, long-term, secure rental agreements, and there are so many that it's at the point where you say, "Oh yeah, I've got a public housing agreement." Oh yeah, I've heard that pretty good. No one thinks they're going to be the greatest, but they're pretty good, and you think actually it's a good deal to get into because it helps you to save up for maybe a house, or you can choose, actually, it's pretty safe and secure.
Yeah.
I will save up for other things and have a good life. And that seems to me, I don't know, is that too obvious?
It seems a lot better than the current situation we're in. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, well, enough from that depressing topic. Now to another one. It's Tariffs Corner, which I guess might be a recurring segment because they keep happening. Yeah, tariffs is our new favorite economic term that everyone's just learning what it means for the first time.
It has been foreshadowed that no country, regardless of its relationship with the United States, has been granted an exemption. Such a decision by the Trump administration is entirely unjustified.
There have been some developments there for Australia specifically.
Well, yes, Australia specifically, but actually everyone who trades with America. The 25% tariffs on steel and aluminium have come into force this week. Australia didn't get an exemption like many were hoping, because we did last time, but this time Trump is in full let's destroy the American economy mode and has decided to put on the tariffs. Now, I've done quite a few interviews around on this topic because everyone's kind of freaking out, and there has been, Peter Dutton, I think, has been stoking misinformation a little bit. Just remember, Americans are the ones who pay the tariffs, not Australians. So, and, yes, we do export a fair bit of steel to America, bit of aluminium, but these are not major exporting industries. It's not going to destroy our economy, mainly because, yes, if you're a steel company exporting to America, and about a third of your steel goes to America, Americans might be importing a bit less because it costs more, but it's not like they can say, well, it costs more to import from Australia. I'm going to go to Canada. Oh, wait on that. I'll go to China. Oh, basically everyone. So all that's going to happen is Americans are going to pay more for their steel and charge more for their customers.
Yep.
So the impact on Australians will be marginal. It's not going to start costing more for your aluminium or anything like that here. The real worry is that Trump's going to go, I like tariffs on steel and aluminium. Let's do it on beef and on wheat and on sugar and on pharmaceutical products. And hey, I'll do it on everything coming into America. And that will just, it'll kill America's economy. And that'll have a concertina effect where it'll start hitting China, start hitting us, start hitting Europe. And basically, thank you, Donald Trump, you've caused a global recession. So at the moment, it's looking like just being a US recession, as we talked last week. Don't freak out too much about the tariffs. It's not going to affect many people. And even if it does, it's only going to be in a fairly marginal way. And also, this line about, Albanese should have gone to America and
what Airbus Albo should have gone.
Yeah, the criticism from the opposition who they've been criticising has been on too many planes, didn't get on a plane this time, which is pretty rich. But also
which worked so well for Zelensky and Starmer
and Trudeau and no one got an exemption. The only thing Trump got from people who went there was the ability to make them beg, make them look weak, make them, Starmer handed him a letter from King Charles saying, here's a state visit, Your Holiness, be kind to us, dear Trump. And he didn't. So I think Albanese was quite right not to go. Should we start raising tariffs on people? On the US, I don't know. That's probably not going to have much of an impact, only hurts us a bit. But, we shouldn't be ruling it out. If they're going to be shitty to us, we can be shitty back. Always remember, we import more from America than we export to America. But also, we have a USA free trade agreement that was done back in 2004 where John Howard basically gave away whatever the Americans wanted so that they would sign it. We got bugger all in return, no deals on sugar and things like this that we actually wanted. We gave up a lot of stuff, especially in relation to intellectual property rights, especially in relation to copyright. We changed our copyright rules from being 50 years after the death of the author to 70 years. So if we didn't have that, there would be all of these works that were written by authors who died in the 60s and early 70s that we would now have, free access to. Instead, because Americans were worried about Walt Disney and the Mickey Mouse rule, it literally kind of was the Mickey Mouse rule, we agreed to all these things. We should be going to them and saying, okay, not only have we ponying up $368 billion for AUKUS for subs you're not even going to give us, maybe we can tell you to go jump on that. But also all this crap that we agreed to for the USA Free Trade Agreement, which you clearly are not honoring because you've just put tariffs on us, well, we're ripping it up. And, all those things about copyright and intellectual property that were good for your businesses, sorry, we do have leverage. We should be using. We've got to start acting like we're not this weak little country.
Yeah.
Start stepping up to the plate and realizing also, have you heard of Pine Gap? Have you seen all the bases we've got? We do have leverage. It's time we start doing it.
Adapting all of Ernest Hemingway's works into Mad Max style
Sounds
movies.
great. Yes.
Yeah, I think so. All right. Well, that's all for Tariffs Corner. We'll keep you updated on.
Will probably be more.
There'll probably be more, definitely be more. And that's probably all we've got time for the pod this week.
It is very depressing if you are saving for a house. Maddening if you're an American and having to deal with the orange goon. But other than that, thank you everyone for listening. Always a pleasure. Hopefully we've sort of given you some information to help you fight back against your elderly relatives or those who are saying, oh, yes, but we paid 70% interest.
Just show them the graph.
Show them the grass of despair. And also, if you are an elderly person, certainly I think this should make you angry as well that younger generations are not having the same opportunities you do or you did. And it really is time to demand some changes there. But thank you all for listening. We will be back with another Dollars and Cents episode next week. And I can tell you next week we're probably going to talk budget because in 2 weeks' time we got a budget coming, unless Anthony Albanese decides to call an election in between then, which I doubt. So we'll do a bit of a preview of what might be coming in the budget. That will be all next week. This week's episode of Dollars and Cents, however, was recorded on the 13th of March, and some things may have changed. Do you think housing affordability will have changed?
Please don't ask me that.
Sorry, Elinor. It won't have changed. If you want to find all the graphs, if you really are a glutton for punishment, you want to actually see the graphs showing just how maddeningly impossible it is to save for a deposit, go to the Guardian Australia site and read my column there, which has got them all. And for more research, including some other graphs on the impossibility of saving for a housing deposit and why we really need to change capital gains tax discounts and other things, go to our website, which is at australiainstitute.org.au. My Blue Sky handle, which has also got a few graphs there, and you can have a chat with me about anything, is at Grog's Gamut. Elinor's is at Elinor Johnston Leake, although she's got to be more vocal there. She's just far too quiet, so try and tease her out of her.
Get me more on social media. It would be great for my mental health.
Yeah, that'll be really good. Okay, ignore that. Music, as always, by Blue Dot Sessions. Everyone have a great week. We'll see you all next week.
See ya.